Hey nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are going on a journey, not through a grand battle or the rise and fall of an empire, but through the quiet, unassuming history of a tiny, twisted piece of wire that holds our paper world together. Imagine the soft rustle of old documents, the crisp scent of aged parchment, and the faint, metallic gleam of things meant to bind. It's a story of quiet genius and forgotten inventors, a story you can really sink into. You probably wouldn't survive the tetanus risk of its early ancestors, but here, in our cozy space, you're perfectly safe and relaxed. So before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? And we'd love to know where you're drifting off from tonight, and what time it is in your corner of the world. Let us know in the comments below. So dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. You are Elias, and the scent of old paper and leather is the smell of home. Your family has been in the business of archives for generations, keepers of memory, guardians of the fragile paper trail of history. Tonight, the great library is silent, save for the gentle hum of the climate control and the soft padding of your own footsteps across the marble floor. You are in the oldest wing, a place where the documents predate not just computers, but typewriters, and in some cases even printing presses. Your task is to sort a new acquisition, a collection of papers from a centuries-old law firm, and it's here, under the warm, focused glow of your desk lamp, that you begin your journey long before the paperclip existed. Before you, on the vast, dark oak of your workbench, lies a stack of correspondence from the late 17th century. The letters are bound not by metal, but by a delicate faded silk ribbon, the color of a pale sunset. You run your gloved finger over the fabric. It is brittle with age, the fibers strained. It is beautiful, elegant even, but you recognize its frailty immediately. A single careless tug, and these thoughts, these agreements and arguments from 300 years ago would flutter into a chaotic pile on the floor. It's a system built on gentleness and trust. You smile softly. It feels far too poetic for organizing tax receipts. You set the ribbon-bound letters aside and pick up a heavier document, a property deed from the early 1700s. This one is held together by a different method. A blob of hardened, burgundy-colored wax is pressed onto the corner of the pages, bearing the faint impression of a signet ring, a tiny lion, defiant and proud. This is a fastener of authority. It's not just for holding pages together. It's for sealing them, for declaring them official and untampered with. But you notice the crack running through the seal. It's a one-time solution. Once the seal is broken to read the contents, the bond is broken forever. You can't just reseal it without the original ring and a lit candle. It's the historical equivalent of a warranty void if removed sticker. Effective, but hardly. Convenient for a clerk who needs to consult a document multiple times a day. Your fingers trained to detect the slightest anomaly in texture. Find something else entirely in a thin stack of theological notes from a much earlier period, perhaps the 15th century. You hold it up to the light. The pages aren't pierced or tied, but stitched. Someone, a patient monk or a diligent scholar, has taken a needle and a thick linen thread and carefully sewn the pages together along the left-hand margin, creating a small, soft-spined booklet. This is a more permanent solution, a commitment to keeping these specific thoughts in this specific order. You admire the tiny, even stitches. It is an act of profound care, but also of profound labor. Imagine doing this for every memo, for every draft of a letter. The world was beginning to produce paper faster than the scribes could stitch it together. This leads you to the most direct ancestor of our story. You unroll a bundle of financial ledgers from the 18th century, and here you find it, the straight pen. These aren't the tiny, delicate pens of today. They are thick, hand-forged shafts of brass and iron, several inches long, with a crudely wound wire head. Each stack of paper, perhaps a dozen sheets thick, is brutally but effectively skewered. In the top left corner, you pull one out. It has a surprising heft. The point is still wickedly sharp. You can almost feel the phantom prick on your own finger, and you imagine generations of clerks, accountants, and lawyers wincing as they fumbled with their files. You can picture the tiny, rust-colored dots on the corners of documents, a small blood sacrifice to the gods of organization. It was the original sharp business practice. In a very literal sense, Dot, as you line up several of these pens on your desk, you recall a conversation with your grandfather, the archivist, before you. He spoke of a quiet debate that still exists among historians of material culture. The straight pen had existed for centuries, essential for tailoring and dressmaking. But when, exactly, did it jump from the sewing basket to the clerk's desk? There is no patent, no eureka moment recorded in a diary. It was a slow, practical migration. You ponder the possibilities. Was it a London bookkeeper in 1750 who, frustrated with ribbons, borrowed a pen from his wife's sewing kit? Or perhaps an American colonial administrator who realized the same tool used to hold his cuff in place could also hold his shipping manifests together. The transition is lost to history, a silent testament to anonymous, everyday ingenuity. The pen wasn't invented for paper. It was simply adopted, a versatile tool, finding a new purpose in a world drowning in its own paperwork. It was the best. Solution: they had a tiny metal spear holding commerce, law, and literature together, one painful poke at a time. It was a start, but as the 19th century loomed, with its steam-powered presses churning out paper at an unprecedented rate, this sharp solution was beginning to show its own limitations. A change was needed. A bend in the road was coming. You pushed a small pile of straight pens to the side of your great oak desk, their sharp points glinting like a tiny historical hazard. The limitations are obvious to you now, sitting here in the quiet of the 21st century. The pens left holes, drew blood, and rusted, leaving ugly brown stains on irreplaceable documents. A world accelerating, powered by steam and humming with telegraph wires, needed something better. It needed something faster, safer, and reusable. Your archivist's hands move now to a different set of boxes. these ones filled with documents. From the mid to late 19th century, the paper feels different, less rag content, more wood pulp. It's cheaper, more abundant. And with this abundance came an even more urgent need for organization. This was the age of invention, a time when it seemed every problem, no matter how small, could be solved with a clever bit of engineering and a patent application. You pull out a folder thick with patent filings from the 1860s, and you see firsthand the first stirrings of a mechanical grip. But these are not the simple, elegant loops, you know. What you see in the detailed schematic drawings looks less like office equipment and more like miniature torture devices for paper. You see springs, levers, interlocking teeth, and hinged plates. These inventors were not thinking of a simple twist of wire. They were thinking like industrial engineers, designing machines to conquer stacks of paper. You are particularly captivated by one patent from 1868. The drawing is a marvel of intricate, unnecessary complexity. It shows a device made of two small, stamped metal plates, connected by a powerful spring-loaded hinge. The edges of the plates are serrated like tiny dragon's teeth. To use it, you would have to press with considerable force on two small tabs, prying the jaws open. You can almost feel the phantom strain in your thumb just looking at the diagram. Then you would insert the papers and release the tabs, and the jaws would snap shut with a decisive and likely destructive clack. You imagine the result, a stack of papers held together with absolute certainty, but also permanently embossed with the jagged imprint of the clamp's teeth. It's a solution, yes, but a brutish one. It's the kind of invention that makes you wonder if the inventor had a personal vendetta against paper. You mentally dub it the pit bull for its refusal to let go. This finding brings to mind a long-running, gentle debate you once had with your great-aunt, a formidable historian who specialized in the history of technology. As you look at the schematics for the pit bull and other similarly aggressive fasteners, you ponder their place in the grand narrative. Were these over-engineered, clunky, and ultimately failed inventions a necessary evolutionary step? Did the eventual successful designers stand on the shoulders of these failed giants, learning what not to do? Or, as your great-aunt argued, were they simply evolutionary dead ends? Were they the fascinating Neanderthals of the fastener world, ultimately contributing nothing to the DNA of the sleek, successful Homo sapiens that was the modern paperclip? Some academics posit a slow, iterative process where each failed idea contributed a small lesson. But looking at this drawing, you find yourself leaning towards your great-aunt's theory. This isn't a step towards the paperclip. It feels like a step in a completely different and far more complicated direction. You rummage further through the folder, and the evidence for the dead-end theory seems to grow. You find other attempts, each a testament to a particular inventor's flawed vision. Here's a design for what was called a paper clasp. It was a single piece of folded metal, but it was rigid. To use it, you had to slide the papers in and then use a separate, specialized pair of pliers to crimp it shut. To remove it, you'd need the pliers again to pry it open. You chuckled softly at the sheer inconvenience. It was less of a temporary clip and more of a semi-permanent metal staple, requiring its own specialized ecosystem of tools. An office manager in 1870 would have had to order not just the clasps, but also the official clasp pliers, which would inevitably get lost, borrowed, or used to try and fix the office clock. Another design you find is a variation of the pen, but with a large, flat, T-shaped head. The idea was that the T-bar would stop the pen from sliding all the way through the paper and would be easier to grip. It was a marginal improvement, perhaps, but it still required you to pierce the documents you were trying to protect. It solved one minor problem while completely ignoring the main one. These inventors were so close yet so far. They were all dancing around the central concept of tension, the idea that the material itself could be the spring. They were still thinking in terms of external forces of hinges, levers, and clamps, rather than the intrinsic gentle power of a bent wire. They were trying to build a battleship to cross a small stream. You leaned back in your chair, the soft leather creaking in the silent library. The warm cone of light from your lamp illuminates these forgotten dreams. You feel a strange affection for these inventors and their clumsy creations. They are monuments to human ingenuity, even in failure. Each one represents a mind in a dusty workshop somewhere in Philadelphia or Manchester or Berlin, convinced that they had finally solved the vexing problem of the stray paper. They were wrong, of course. They had misunderstood the assignment. The challenge wasn't to bind paper in iron submission. The true, elegant solution wouldn't be about force. It would be about flow, about a simple, perfect loop that could coax papers together, hold them securely, and then release them without a trace. The world didn't need another machine. It needed a piece of bent wire, and that simple, revolutionary bend was just around the corner. You let out a soft sigh, the sound barely registering in the vast, silent hall of the archive. The ghosts of those overly complex, spring-loaded inventions fade from your mind. They were a fascinating detour, a road of brute force and mechanical complexity. Now your hands, guided by an archivist's intuition, search for the next step in the story. You feel you are looking for a bridge, something that connects the primitive world of the straight pen to the modern era of simple efficiency. Your gloved fingers find it in the same folder of 19th century patents. It's another schematic, but this one is different. It's a whisper of elegant simplicity compared to the roars of the previous designs. The document is U.S. Patent No. 64088. The date at the top reads April 23, 1867. The name of the inventor is Samuel B. Fay, a gentleman from Worcester, Massachusetts. And the title of the invention is not, as you might expect, for a paper fastener. It is an improvement in ticket fasteners. At first glance, you might be tempted to pass it over, to categorize it with textile tools and haberdashery. But you, Elias, keeper of the quiet details, know better. You pull a document into the warm circle of your lamplight and study the drawing, and there it is, the vital clue. The conceptual leap. The design itself is a single, continuous piece of wire. It has been bent into a shape that is tantalizingly close to the object of your quest. There is still a sharpened point on one end, a clear nod to its ancestor, the pen. This point was intended to pierce the fabric of a gentleman's suit or a lady's dress. But it's what happens next with the wire that is so revolutionary. Instead of just stopping, the wire loops back on itself, creating a clever series of bends and turns designed to hold a paper ticket securely. You trace the path of the wire with your finger, following its journey from the sharp point through a U-turn into a clasping section and back again. There are no hinges, no external springs, no serrated jaws. And in that moment you understand. Samuel Fay was the first to truly grasp the secret. The genius wasn't in adding a mechanism to the wire. The genius was in realizing the wire was the mechanism. He used the inherent springiness of the metal, the natural tension created by the bends, to do all the work. It's a design that doesn't clamp. It embraces. Your eyes move from the drawing to the text of the patent itself, and you uncover a fact that is so often lost to history, a true curiosity of the Paperclip's long journey. Fay's primary goal, as stated in his application, was to solve a problem for the burgeoning department stores and textile mills of New England. His fastener was for attaching price or inventory tickets to bolts of cloth and garments. It was superior to a simple pin because the looped design prevented the ticket from tearing off easily. It was a perfect solution for a specific commercial need. But then, buried deep within the formal, legalistic language of the patent, you find the key phrase. Fay, with what you can only imagine was a stroke of casual foresight, notes that his invention may also prove very useful for uniting papers together. There it is, he knew. He saw the potential beyond the tailor's shop. It was not the headline of his invention, but a quiet, almost throwaway line. It's a classic case of an inventor solving one problem while accidentally providing the key to a much larger one, like inventing a new kind of powerful glue for shoemaking and mentioning in a footnote that it might also be useful in surgery. Holding the patent, you feel the pull of a familiar academic debate. You can almost hear the voices of patent historians and museum curators arguing over a display case. Is Samuel Fay's ticket fastener the true father of the paperclip? Or is it merely a close relative, a transitional fossil in the evolutionary chain? Those who argue for its primacy point to this document right here. They say Fay established the core principle. A single piece of bent wire using its own tension. Everyone who came after, they claim, was merely refining Fay's brilliant insight. But others argue that the design, while clever, is still fundamentally flawed for office use. To attach papers with Fay's clip, you would have to manually pry open the clasping part with your thumbnail, slide the papers in, and then let it spring back. The final perfect form of the paperclip, the gem, would require no such manipulation. Its genius would lie in its effortless glide. So the question hangs in the air of the quiet archive. Is this the invention, or the invention before the invention? Is Fay the hero of the story, or the brilliant forerunner who cleared the path for an anonymous hero yet to come? You try to picture Samuel B. Fay, not a wild-eyed visionary, but a practical New England inventor, a man who saw problem tickets falling off shirts and engineered an elegant solution. He likely saw the paper binding potential as a minor secondary market. Did he have any inkling that this secondary use would be the one to achieve global ubiquity, while his primary invention would fade into obscurity, a relic for historians like you to ponder? You doubt it. He was a man of his time solving a problem. Of his time. He couldn't have known he was laying the conceptual groundwork for an object that would one day be found on every desk on the planet. You carefully slide the patent for the ticket, fastener back into its protective sleeve. It feels like a turning point. The age of clumsy mechanical monsters is over. The age of elegant, physics-based simplicity has begun. Samuel Fay provided the spark. He bent the wire in the right way for the right reasons. The principle was now out in the world, recorded in the public files of the U.S. Patent Office. The stage was now set. All that was needed was for someone to look at Fay's brilliant idea and take one final, small but crucial step to get rid of the pen. You place the file containing Samuel Fay's patent back into its archival box, feeling a sense of closure on that chapter of the story. Fay had provided the conceptual key, used the wire's own tension. He had turned the light on in the room. Now, all that was needed was for someone to see clearly. You, Elias, as a historian of the mundane, know that the most profound inventions are often not the most complex, but the most elegant simplifications. You shift your focus, moving your research forward into the final, bustling years of the 19th century. Your hands now sift through a collection of British and American office supply catalogs and trade journals from the 1890s. The pages are brittle, the color of weak tea, and smell faintly of industry and progress. You are scanning ads for enormous oak filing cabinets, ornate inkwells, and the latest in fountain pen technology. When your eyes snag on something small, it's not a grand full-page announcement. It's a tiny, humble woodcut illustration in the corner of a page, tucked beside an advertisement for ledger books. There are no trumpets, no fanfare, but you stop breathing for a second, because there it is, not a prototype, not a patent drawing, but the finished article presented for sale. The perfect, familiar, double-oval loop of the modern paperclip. The advertisement refers to it simply as the gem. It has arrived. You lean closer, your lamp illuminating the simple lines of the drawing. You analyze it not as a consumer, but as the archivist who has just traced its clumsy ancestry. It is a marvel of reductionist design. The last vestige of its ancestor, the pen, is gone. There is no sharp point. The brutal, serrated jaws of the mechanical clamps are a distant, brutish memory. What you see is a single, unbroken piece of steel wire, bent into a graceful, symmetrical, two-looped shape. A physicist might call its topology a toroidal knot, but you see it as pure poetry in motion. You can instantly visualize its function. The inner loop is slightly narrower, designed to slide over the edge of a stack of papers and hold them fast. The outer, larger loop acts as the lever and the spring, providing the gentle, consistent pressure. It is designed to glide on and, just as importantly, to glide off, leaving the paper completely unharmed. It is so simple, so self-evident, that it feels less like something a person invented and more like a law of physics that was finally discovered as an archivist. You're next. Instinct is automatic. You must find the source, the credit, the patent. You turn from the commercial catalogs to the official patent records of the era, searching through the archives of Britain and the United States for the 1870s, 80s, and 90s. You search for the manufacturer mentioned in the ads, a firm called Gem Manufacturing Limited, based in Britain. Your search yields results, but they are not what you expect. You find detailed patents for the incredible machines designed to produce the clips. These drawings show complex arrangements of gears, cutters, and formers that could take a spool of wire and churn out thousands of perfectly identical gem clips in an hour. The ingenuity is breathtaking, but a patent for the clip itself, the simple double-looped wire, it does not exist. It is nowhere to be found. You have found the factory that built the car, but there is no record of who designed the engine. The most successful, ubiquitous, and elegantly designed paper fastener in human history appeared on the market as a fully formed product. Yet its creator is a ghost. Your research confirms the great central mystery that has puzzled historians for over a century. The earliest, universally accepted, concrete evidence for the gem clip's existence is not a patent, but a humble advertisement from 1899, promoting the sale of the gem paper clip by the Cushman and Dennison Company in America, who were marketing the British-made product. That small ad is effectively the gem's birth certificate. Its history begins not with a recorded moment of invention, but with a commercial sales pitch. It's as if the pyramids had appeared in the desert one day with a sign out front offering tours, but with no record of the architects or builders. This, is the great unanswered question. It's the debate that echoes in the halls of science museums and in the footnotes of academic papers on technology. Who invented the gem paperclip? You lean back the old leather of your chair, groaning softly in the silence, and you walk through the competing theories. The first, and perhaps most likely, is the theory of the anonymous employee. Somewhere in the noisy, oily confines of the gem manufacturing factory in England, a clever, unnamed worker might have been the one to perfect the design. Perhaps they sketched it on a piece of packing crate during a lunch break. In the industrial culture of the late 19th century, the company would have simply owned the design, with no obligation to credit, reward, or patent the idea under the worker's name. A second, more romantic theory is that of the secretive inventor. Perhaps an independent genius created the design, understood its potential, and sold the rights directly to gem manufacturing for a quiet, one-time payment, preferring a guaranteed sum to the uncertainty and expense of patenting. The inventor walks away with cash, the company walks away with a world-changing design, and history is left with no paper trail. But there is a third theory, one that feels strangely satisfying to you as an archivist of slow, gradual change. Perhaps there was no single inventor. Perhaps the gem clip was the result of a slow, organic evolution right on the factory floor. Maybe the process started with a design similar to Samuel Fay's, and over months or years, through the daily trial and error of dozens of unnamed machinists and engineers, it was incrementally improved. A bend was tightened here, a loop was widened. There, the sharp point was removed, until through this collective, anonymous effort, the perfect form emerged. It would be an invention without an inventor, a masterpiece crafted by a committee that never met. You smile at the thought. A kind of crowd-sourced innovation, long before the term existed. You look back at the simple drawing in the advertisement. It seems to hold its secret tightly. Its perfection is matched only by the mystery of its origin. And as you sit here tonight in this quiet sanctuary of history, you find you are at peace with the anonymity. It feels fitting. The paperclip is not a monument to a great individual. It is a tool for everyone. Its anonymous birthright makes it belong to everyone and no one. It slipped into our world without a name, and in doing so, became one of the most recognized objects on Earth. You sit back for a moment in the deep, enveloping silence of the archive, the mystery of the gem clip's anonymous creator settling around you like a comfortable blanket. It is a perfect, authorless story, but history is rarely so neat. For every quiet truth, there is often a louder, more compelling fiction. You, Elias, know that the stories people choose to believe are often more powerful than the facts themselves. You now turn your attention to a different file, one that takes the narrative away from the smoky factories of Britain and the bustling offices of America and transports you to the crisp northern air of Scandinavia. Inside the folder is a German patent granted in 1899 and a subsequent American patent from 1901. The drawings are clear, the legal language precise. And unlike the gem, this invention has a name attached to it. Johan Valler, a Norwegian citizen, a patent office manager from Christiania, the city that would one day be renamed Oslo. As you look at the name on the documents, you feel you are meeting a central character in this story. This is the man who, for the better part of a century, would be celebrated, taught to school children, and encyclopedically cited as the inventor of the paperclip. This is the face that was given to the ghost's invention. You study the drawings in Valler's patents, your archivist as I, immediately looking for the details. At first glance, it is unmistakably a paperclip. It is a single piece of spring steel, wire bent into a rectangular shape to hold papers together. It follows the same fundamental principle that Fay had hinted at and the gem had perfected. But as you look closer, you see the flaw, the small but crucial detail that separates a good idea from a great one. Valler's clip is a simple rectangle, with the two ends of the wire finishing their journey parallel to the main body of the clip. It is missing the gem's final, elegant outer loop, the graceful turn that allows paper to glide in smoothly. With Valler's design, you realize you would have to manually lift the tip of the wire to insert the pages. And that tip, a sharp cut edge of metal, would be far more likely to snag, scrape, and tear the very documents it was meant to protect. Herein lies the great, gentle irony of Johan Valler's story. At the exact time he was diligently working in his office in Norway, sketching and perfecting his design, the superior gem clip was already being manufactured and sold in Great Britain. Valler, in all likelihood completely unaware of the gem's existence, was investing his time and intellect into solving a problem that had, across the North Sea, already been solved more elegantly by an anonymous creator. His patent was a genuine, independent invention, but it was also, from the moment it was conceived, obsolete. It was a brilliant new design for a horse-drawn carriage, invented a year after the first automobile rolled off the assembly line. So, how did this flawed, never-produced design become the foundation of a national legend? Valler's patents were granted, but he never found a manufacturer. His clip couldn't compete with the gem. For 2 decades, his patents gathered dust in archives, much like your own, a forgotten footnote. The story, begins in the 1920s. Norway, having gained its independence from Sweden in 1905, was a young nation forging its identity, actively seeking out national heroes and symbols of Norwegian ingenuity. An engineer at a Norwegian patent office stumbled upon Valler's old patent and saw a story. He began to promote the idea that this humble, ubiquitous office tool, the paperclip, was a Norwegian invention. The story was perfect. It was David versus Goliath, a small nation creating something the whole world used. The myth took root in the fertile ground of national pride, and Johann Wahler, who had passed away years earlier, was posthumously crowned a national hero of invention. You feel a pang of sympathy for Wahler. He was an honest inventor who was, without his consent, made the face of a historical era. The debate among cultural historians, a debate your own family has discussed over long winter evenings, is why this particular myth became so potent and enduring. It wasn't just a simple case of national pride. The foundation was laid in the 1920s, but the legend was truly forged in the crucible of war. The story of Wahler's invention gave Norwegians a sense of ownership over the paperclip, transforming it from a mere office object into a piece of their national heritage. This sense of ownership would become critically important decades later, setting the stage for the clip's most dramatic and noble role, a story you know is yet to come. You place a copy of Wahler's patent drawing next to the 1899 advertisement. For the gem, the contrast is almost poetic. On one side is the anonymous clip, perfect, practical, a global success, born of a mystery. On the other side is Wahler's clip, imperfect, impractical, a commercial failure, yet attached to a famous, celebrated name. History, you think with a quiet smile, plays the most wonderful tricks. It granted one man fame for a product no one used, and it gave the world a product everyone used while withholding the creator's fame. The true inventor remains a ghost, their legacy measured in the billions of silent, efficient clips holding the world's paperwork together. Johann Wahler's legacy is not in the object itself, but in the powerful story his nation built around it. He did not, in the end, invent the paperclip, but he gave it a homeland and a hero's face, preparing it for a destiny he could never have imagined. The story of Johann Wahler, the hero by mistake, fades as you carefully close his file. His tale was a detour into the power of myth and national identity. Now you return to the main channel of history, to the raw, competitive current of the marketplace at the turn of the 20th century. The anonymous gem clip is a runaway success, its simple, elegant form quietly conquering desks across the globe. But in the world of commerce, a success that is not protected by a patent is like a beautiful, unguarded treasure. It is an open invitation for a gold rush.u Elias, now turned to a set of large, flat archival boxes. They are brimming with American and European patent documents, trade circulars, and office supply catalogs from the bustling period between 1895 and the outbreak of the First World War. As you open the first box, you are met with a visual explosion of ingenuity, a veritable Cambrian explosion of twisted wire. The gem's success had not gone unnoticed, and it seemed that every inventor with a workshop and access to a spool of wire was determined to build a better, or at least a more legally defensible, mousetrap. The patent wars of the paperclip had begun. You spread the documents across the great oak table, and it transforms into a museum of forgotten designs. You see dozens of competitors, each vying for a share of the burgeoning fastener market. Your gloved finger traces the outlines of these contenders. many of whom have names that are now lost to all but the most dedicated historians like yourself. You find a catalog featuring the owl clip. Its design is a clear riff on the gem, but the two main loops have been pinched and shaped to resemble the wide, staring eyes of an owl, with the wire ends sticking out like tiny horns, promising a better grip. It's an attempt to add personality and a perceived feature to a purely functional object. Beside it, you see the patent for the ideal clip, which was a genuine commercial success for many years. Marketed by Cushman and Dennison, the same firm that introduced the gem to America, the ideal featured a clever variation. The wire was bent to create two pincer-like tongues within the main loops, designed to provide a much firmer hold on thicker stacks of paper. It was a more specialized, heavy-duty clip. Then there's the Gothic clip, with a pointed, triangular head like a cathedral arch, which claimed to be easier to slide onto paper. You find a German design, the Rufa, with finely serrated, wavy edges, built on the principle that the added friction would prevent even a single page from slipping. Some clips are ornate and complex, looking like miniature pieces of wrought iron fence. Others are brutally simple, almost crude. It was a frenzy of invention, a beautiful, chaotic free-for-all. It was as if every town had its own official paperclip. Designed as you survey this beautiful mess, you ponder a debate that often surfaces among design historians. Was this period of frantic competition a showcase of genuine innovation, with each new clip striving to solve a real flaw in the one that came before? Or was it, as many suspect, simply a case of design churn? This theory suggests that the endless variations were not about creating a better clip, but about creating a different clip something, anything, that was novel enough to be granted its own patent. Since the gem itself was unpatented and free for anyone to manufacture, the only way for a company to own a proprietary piece of the market was to create a distinct, patentable version. The goal wasn't necessarily evolution. It was marketing. You can almost hear the salesman's pitch from 1906. Tired of your old-fashioned clip? Try the new S-grip clip, now with a patented reverse angle loop for 15% more clamping confidence. You try to imagine yourself as an office manager in Chicago. In 1908, being presented with this bewildering array of choices, the salesman for the ideal clip might show how it can hold 50 pages without slipping. The man selling the owl clip might praise its ability to stay put on a single, important receipt. All the while the simple, anonymous, and likely cheaper gem clip sits in a plain wooden box on your desk, doing its job perfectly well 99% of the time. The patent wars created brand loyalty for an object that cost 1/10 of a cent. A battle for the soul of the office desk fought with tiny pieces of bent wire. But you, sitting in the long view of history, know how this war ends. You move through the catalogs chronologically into the 1920s and 30s. The chaotic variety begins to recede. The Gothic clip disappears. The owl is gone by 1925. The Rufa and its serrated brethren fade away. Even the robust ideal clip, once a major player, is relegated to a specialty item for artists and architects. The blizzard of patents subsides. Why? Because the market, in its slow, silent, and collective wisdom, had made its choice. The endless variations, The clever features, the patented improvements, they were, for the most part, answers to questions that nobody was really asking. They added complexity, and often cost, to a problem that had already been solved with perfect simplicity. Gather the drawings of the forgotten clips into a single pile. This frantic chapter was a testament to the inventive spirit and capitalist fervor of the age. But it was also a profound lesson in the power of elegant design. You cannot improve upon perfection by making it more complicated. All these named, patented, and heavily marketed contenders were, in the end, just static. The clear, quiet signal of the anonymous gem was the one that endured. The patent wars were over. The ghost had won. The gentle rustle of old catalogs and patent filings subsides as you neatly stack the records of the Paperclip's commercial wars. The story so far has been one of quiet workshops, bustling factories, and clever marketing. The anonymous gem, Clip has emerged as the silent, undisputed champion in a war of design. But now, Elias, you feel a shift in the very atmosphere of the archive as you move your research forward into the mid-20th century. The documents in the next box are not about commerce. They are photographs, typed letters on thin paper, and newspaper, clippings all from a Europe descending into the long, dark night of the Second World War. The journey of the humble Paperclip is about to take a sharp, solemn, and extraordinary turn. Your focus lands on Norway, the homeland of Johann Valor, the mistaken hero of our story. You pull out a series of black and white photographs taken in Oslo in the autumn of 1940. The German occupation is fresh, the shock still palpable in the faces of the citizens. At first, the images show ordinary street scenes, people waiting for trams, browse shop windows, all under the imposing gaze of soldiers in unfamiliar uniforms. But then your trained archivist's eye catches a small, repeated detail, a subtle anomaly. On the lapel of a young man's tweed coat, you see it. Tucked into the collar of a woman's blouse, you see it again. A simple metal gem paperclip. Find a letter written by a student at the University of Oslo, and the story begins to crystallize. The gesture, the letter explains, started there. In the wake of the invasion, the occupying authorities had swiftly banned all overt symbols of Norwegian patriotism. Pins bearing the national flag, ribbons in the national colors of red, white, and blue all were forbidden. In response, the students, needing a new way to signal their allegiance to each other and their defiance to the invaders, reached for the most mundane object they could imagine. They chose the paperclip. This is where the myth of Johann Valor, the mistaken inventor, played its most crucial role. Because they believed the paperclip to be a proud Norwegian invention, wearing it was a deeply patriotic act, a secret password hidden in plain sight. The symbolism was as perfect as it was subtle. The very function of the clip, to bind things together, became a powerful, unspoken motto. Vi holder sammen, the Norwegian phrase for we hold together. In a time when the occupying force was trying to break the nation's spirit and tear its social fabric apart, this tiny piece of office equipment became a public pledge of solidarity. It was a promise worn on the outside, a quiet statement that said, "We may be occupied, but we are not defeated. We are still one people." For a precious few weeks, the German soldiers patrolling the streets saw only a piece of metal. They saw an office supply, not an emblem of rebellion. The most potent symbol of resistance in Norway was, for a time, completely invisible to the enemy it was aimed at. As you study these powerful photographs, you recall a long-standing discussion among historians of the European resistance movements. What was the true, measurable impact of a symbol like this? Some historians focused on the hard, quantifiable data of espionage and sabotage, argue that the role of the paperclip has been somewhat romanticized, that it was ultimately a passive gesture with little effect on the military reality of the occupation. But another school of thought, one you find yourself aligning with, argues that this view fundamentally misunderstands the nature of resistance. They contend that in the initial, confusing, and terrifying stages of an occupation, such symbols are absolutely vital. The paperclip wasn't designed to derail a train. It was designed to prevent the derailment of a nation's soul. Its purpose was to build morale, to combat the crushing feeling of isolation, and to allow strangers on the street to look at each other and know, without a single word, that they were on the same side. It was a weapon in a psychological war, a small piece of armor for the human spirit. The proof of its effectiveness, you find, comes from the occupiers themselves. You locate the clipping you were searching for, a small, terse announcement printed in an Oslo newspaper. It is a decree from the German authorities. Effective immediately, the public wearing of paper clips or any similar insignia is strictly forbidden. Violators are subject to arrest. There it is. The Germans had figured it out, and in banning it, they validated its power. A symbol only, as teeth if those in power feel the need to pull them. The humble paperclip had officially graduated from a simple office tool to a piece of contraband. You can't help but smile at the thought of a stern-faced German commandant having to draft a serious report, warning his superiors in Berlin about the growing threat posed by the strategic deployment of stationery. You pick up a vintage gem, clipped from a small tray on your desk, the cool metal resting in the palm of your gloved hand. It is the same object that was born in an anonymous British factory, the same design that won the commercial patent wars. But it feels heavier now. It has been transformed, imbued with a meaning that its creators could never have conceived. It has been a tool of commerce and a subject of law, but here, on the lapels of the Norwegian people, it became a badge of immense courage. The simple loop of wire, given a mistaken father and an accidental homeland, had found its most profound purpose, not in binding paper, but in binding a people together in their darkest hour. This, you feel with a certainty that resonates deep in the quiet archive, was the paperclip's finest moment. You gently place the small, steel clip, the one that feels heavy with the weight of its wartime service, into a velvet-lined archival tray. Its role as a symbol of defiance feels like a noble climax, a peak in its long and winding story. But the journey of this humble object is not over. Its greatest act of survival was yet to come. You, Elias, now move your attention away from the brittle papers and faded photographs of the past, and toward a different kind of history, one stored in beige plastic and on magnetic tape. You are entering the machine age. The scent in this part of the archive is different. The familiar, comforting smell of old paper and leather binding is now mingled with the faint, sharp odor of aging polymers and the metallic tang of ozone, the ghost of old electronics. Before you on the table is an artifact from your own early days as a junior archivist in the 1980s. A hulking, beige personal computer tower. It's an icon of its era, as evocative as the pyramids, though considerably less elegant. Next to it lies a 5.25-inch floppy disk in its paper sleeve. This machine, and thousands like it, heralded the coming of the paperless office, a concept that was, in theory, a death sentence for the paperclip. You pick up a standard gem clip from a small ceramic bowl on your desk. For the first time in this entire narrative journey, you deliberately desecrate its perfect form. Holding the main loop firmly, you unbend the smaller inner loop, straightening it out until you have a long, thin metal probe with a convenient handle. This simple, almost unconscious act of transformation is the key to the paperclip's next chapter. It ceases to be a fastener and becomes a tool. A key dot, you are transported back in time to a frustrating afternoon in this very room. The computer screen is frozen, displaying a garbled mess of characters. The keyboard is unresponsive. The machine is locked in digital paralysis. There is only one solution. Your eyes drift down the front of the computer tower past the disk. Drive to a tiny, almost invisible pinhole. Next to it, the word reset is imprinted in the plastic. The button is recessed deep within the hole, a deliberate design choice by engineers to prevent an accidental, catastrophic reboot that could wipe out hours of work. A finger is too large to press it. A pen is too wide. But you, the archivist, surrounded by the tools of the paper age, knew just what to do. You calmly reached for a paperclip, unbent it just as you have now, and slid the wire into the tiny aperture. You feel a soft, tactile click. The machine's fans fall silent for a moment, and then whir back to life with a triumphant beep. The digital world is saved by an analog tool. In that simple, satisfying click, a bridge was formed between the era of paper and the era of the processor. This one act became a ritual for a whole generation of early computer users. The unbent paperclip became the unofficial, universal master key for the burgeoning digital age. It was the tool you used to manually eject a jammed floppy disk from its drive, pushing the wire into the little hole to activate the release lever. It was what you grabbed when the tray of your first CD-ROM drive refused to open. Decades later, its descendants would perform the same essential function for ejecting SIM card trays from smartphones and tablets. The paperclip became the one tool every IT department, from the largest corporation to the smallest school, knew they needed in their kit, right alongside the network testers and sets of tiny screwdrivers. It was the ultimate low-tech solution to high-tech problems. This new, unintended career for the paperclip is a perfect illustration of a concept you once read about in a sociology journal: the difference between an object's design and its affordances. The academic debate centers on a principle called exaptation, a term borrowed from evolutionary biology. Exaptation describes a trait that evolved for one purpose, but is later co-opted for a completely different one, like feathers, which may have first evolved for insulation, being co-opted for flight. The paperclip, you realize, is the ultimate example of technological exaptation. It was designed to hold paper, but its inherent properties, its affordances being made of strong steel wire, thin enough to fit in tiny holes, yet soft enough To be easily bent into a new shape made it the perfect candidate for a new job. Was this a lucky accident, or was it the inevitable outcome of a truly brilliant, multi-purpose design? Did we find a new use for the paperclip, or did the paperclip's fundamental nature make it the obvious answer? Just waiting for the right question to be asked? You have to smile at the deep and beautiful irony of the situation. Just as the world began to speak seriously about getting rid of paper, the paperclip, instead of fading into obsolescence, cleverly embedded itself into the very heart of the machines that threatened its existence. It became the indispensable midwife of the digital revolution, the ultimate survival strategy. If you can't beat them, join them by becoming the only reliable way to poke their vital, recessed buttons. You look down at the unbent clip in your hand. It is no longer the perfect, symmetrical loop of the gem. It is a tool, reformed and repurposed. Its long journey has taken it from holding legal documents to holding a nation's spirit, to rebooting the very foundations of the modern world. It proved that it was more than just a fastener. It was an icon of adaptability. The paperclip was not ready to be filed away into history. It had found a new way to hold things together. You gently rebend the straightened paperclip in your hand, coaxing it back towards its original, familiar double loop. The wire, having been reformed, retains a memory of its transformation. It's no longer the perfect, mass-produced gem shape, but something unique, a little wobbly. It has a story. This simple act of reshaping the wire leads your thoughts down a new path. You've seen the paperclip as a tool of commerce, a symbol of resistance, and a key to the digital age. But now you contemplate its journey into an entirely different realm, the world of art and culture. Your archivist's hands move to a curious box on a lower shelf. It's an unofficial collection, labeled simply ephemera. Inside are the odds and ends your predecessors found too interesting to discard, but too informal to catalog. You lift the lid, and nestled on a bed of soft tissue paper is a long, intricate chain made of hundreds of interlinked paperclips. It snakes and coils like a metallic serpent. You lift a section of it. It's cool to the touch and makes a soft, rustling, metallic sound like a tiny wind chime. You know this object instantly. It is the universal art form of the board office. Worker, the official sculpture of the long-winded conference call. This chain, you muse, is the first step in the paperclip's artistic evolution. It's where the object ceases to be a tool and becomes a medium. You think of the countless miles of these chains that have been created in offices around the world, a silent, collective testament to procrastination and fidgeting. You recall reading a sleepy factoid once about a world record for the longest paperclip chain, stretching for dozens of kilometers, a monumental achievement in collaborative boredom. From these simple chains, creativity blossoms. You've seen pictures of tiny, intricate stick figures, miniature bicycles, and even delicate earrings, all crafted from these humble loops of wire. It's a form of folk art created not by trained artists, but by ordinary people with a moment of idle time and a desk tidy full of raw material. This quiet, democratic art form brings to mind a long-standing debate you followed in art history. Journals. When does this kind of craft cross the line into what the world calls high art? Is a paperclip chain on a desk merely a doodle, but the same chain, 100 feet long and hanging in a pristine white gallery, a masterpiece? Is the difference in the intent of the creator, the scale of the creation, or the context in which it is viewed? The humble paperclip finds itself, quite unexpectedly, at the very center of this complex philosophical argument about the nature of art itself. It challenges our notions of value, forcing us to ask if art is defined by the medium or by the message. The ultimate answer to that question, the paperclip's definitive leap into the world of high art, takes you back once more to its adopted homeland of Norway. You pull out a large, glossy photograph from a different file. The image shows a wide green park under a clear blue sky. Rising from the grass, dwarfing the people who stroll beneath it, is a monumental sculpture of a gem. Paperclip. It is enormous, nearly 23 feet tall, a gleaming loop of steel that seems to bind the earth to the sky. This is the final, breathtaking transformation. The object has been scaled up to such a degree that its original function is rendered not just impossible, but absurd. This paperclip could not hold two pieces of paper together any more than a skyscraper could. Its sole purpose now is to mean something. You know the story of this sculpture. It was erected in Oslo to stand as a permanent tribute, a final victory. It commemorates the paperclip's role as a symbol of unity during the war, and it honors the man they believed to be its inventor, Johann Waller. The fact that he didn't invent this specific design is an irony that is now part of the sculpture's rich story. It is a monument built on a mistake, but a mistake that fueled the courage of a nation, making the tribute all the more poignant. This statue is the ultimate expression of symbolism over function. It's probably the only paperclip in the world that requires a team of engineers to install an industrial-grade paint to protect it from the elements. This act of magnifying a mundane object fits perfectly within the broader 20th century pop art movement. Artists like Claes Oldenburg became world famous for creating colossal sculptures of everyday things, a clothespin, a shuttlecock, a tube of lipstick. By taking these disposable, overlooked items and rendering them in monumental scale, they forced the public to see them anew, to appreciate the beauty and significance in the everyday. The Oslo paperclip, though created by a different artist, shares this artistic DNA. It elevates the humble, forcing you to stop and consider the journey of this simple wire loop. You look from the photograph of the magnificent sculpture back to the humble, handmade chain in the box. The two objects seem to be in conversation with each other across decades and across the vast gulf between folk art and fine art, from a fidget toy on a desk to a national monument in a park. The paperclip has completed its cultural journey. It has transcended its physical purpose to become a pure symbol, a canvas for creativity, and a testament to history. It proves, in its silent, gleaming way, that even the most boring things in our lives can contain extraordinary stories of courage, ingenuity, and art if we only take a moment to look. You carefully place the photograph of the monumental Oslo sculpture back into its acid-free sleeve. The paperclip has been immortalized in steel, its journey from function to symbol complete. But the story doesn't end there. The digital world that the clip had helped reboot and maintain was about to return the favor, immortalizing it in a new and infinitely more annoying way. Your journey, Elias, now takes a sharp turn from the tangible world of art and history into the virtual realm of the late 1990s, a world of dial-up modems and chunky CRT monitors. You move to a more recent station in the archive, where your predecessors have preserved obsolete computer systems. You power on a machine from that era, and it hums to life with a familiar whirring chord. The operating system loads, a landscape of pixelated gray and blue. With a few clicks of the mouse, you open a word processing program. The screen presents you with a blank white page, a digital piece of paper. You begin to type a sentence, the cursor blinking patiently, and then it happens in the bottom right corner of the screen. Without any warning or invitation, a character materializes. It's a small animated rendering of a classic gem paperclip, but this one has been given life. It has two large white and black, googly eyes that swivel and blink. It has thin, expressive eyebrows that arch and furrow. It wiggles and taps impatiently on the inside of your screen, and a little yellow speech bubble pops up. It looks like you're writing a letter, the text. Offers. Would you like some help? You have just been greeted by Clipit, the default Microsoft Office assistant, known to history by his much simpler and far more infamous name, Clippy. You lean back and a soft smile plays on your lips as you remember him. Clippy was the product of a well-intentioned idea to make the increasingly complex world of software feel more friendly and approachable, to give the cold, impersonal computer a face, a personality, a helper. The concept was sound, but the execution created one of the most universally recognized annoyances of the modern age. Clippy was intrusive. His observations were often laughably obvious. He would appear at the most inopportune times, breaking your concentration to ask if you needed help formatting a title you had just formatted. He was the digital equivalent of a relentlessly cheerful, but ultimately unhelpful person who peers over your shoulder while you work, offering constant, unsolicited advice. But here is a detail, a curiosity of software history that most people have forgotten in their singular focus on Clippy. You right-click on his animated form, and a menu of options appears. You see that you can, in fact, fire Clippy, and you can hire a replacement. There was a whole cast of characters. You could choose the genius, a cartoon version of Albert Einstein who would float on a cloud. There was F1, a friendly, slightly clumsy robot. There was even a power pup, but Clippy was the default. He was the first assistant everyone met, and so he became the lightning rod for all the frustration. He became the face of the entire flawed concept, a scapegoat for the sins of his digital brethren. You recall reading an internal history of Microsoft that claimed the original Cody name for the project was TFC, with the C rumored to stand for clown, hinting that even within the walls of the company, there was a deep ambivalence about the idea from the very beginning. Clippy's spectacular failure to win hearts and minds made him a legendary case study for academics in the field of human-computer interaction, or HCI. Their debates fill volumes. In your digital archive, was Clippy a noble, if clumsy, pioneer? A genuine attempt to build a bridge between human emotion and machine logic using an anthropomorphic software agent? Or was he a fundamental design catastrophe? A cautionary tale of what happens when a cute gimmick overrides user autonomy and context. Many experts argue that Clippy's constant interruptions and lack of real intelligence poisoned the well for the concept of helpful AI, setting the field back years. His legacy is a masterclass in how not to design a user-friendly experience. The most important lesson he taught was that the most helpful assistant is often the one that stays quiet until it's asked. You know how his story ends. The public backlash was not just academic. It was immense and visceral. Clippy became one of the first truly global internet memes. It was parodied in cartoons, vilified in articles, and became a symbol of everything people found frustrating about modern software. Eventually, the creators had to listen. In the early 2000s, with a new version of the software, Clippy was officially retired. The company even created a humorous ad campaign about his firing, showing him struggling to find new work. He was unceremoniously ejected from the very machine his physical ancestors had helped to reboot. You close the old program, and Clippy vanishes from the screen. A strange wave of nostalgia washes over you. The sharp annoyance has faded with time, replaced by a sort of fond, ironic reminiscence shared by millions. He was irritating, yes, but he was also part of a specific moment in our shared digital history. The paperclip, an object born of anonymous physical perfection, had its image borrowed to become this flawed, famous, and ultimately unforgettable digital character. It was another bizarre, looping turn in its long road, proving that even in the virtual world of bits and bytes, the paperclip could not be ignored. It had to leave its mark, even if that mark was a global sigh of collective frustration. The ghost of Clippy fades from the old monitor as you shut down the machine, and you are fully back in the present. You are here, alas, in the quiet hum of your modern archive in the 21st century. You look around your workspace. It's a world of clean lines and glowing screens. Your primary tools are a flat, silent laptop and a vast, searchable digital database. The tall, green metal filing cabinets that were the pillars of your grandfather's archive are gone, replaced by rows of humming, anonymous servers in a distant, climate-controlled room. The great promise of the 1970s, the paperless office, is no longer a futuristic dream. For the most part, it is here. Memos arrive as instant messages. Contracts are signed with a digital pen. The mighty river of paper that flowed through the 20th century has slowed to a gentle, meandering stream. And yet, you slide open the top drawer of your minimalist desk. There, nestled in a molded plastic tray, lies a small, gleaming pile of gem paperclips. You cannot remember the last time you ordered a box. You haven't needed to. They just seem to accumulate, a sedimentary layer of a bygone office culture. This, you reflect, is the great paradox of the paperclip in the modern age. In a world with drastically less paper to bind, there are still trillions upon trillions of paperclips. Global production, while perhaps past its peak, continues in the billions annually. They are in every junk drawer, at the bottom of every pencil cup, in the linty depths of old handbags. They have achieved a state of such complete ubiquity that they have become almost invisible, a kind of metallic background radiation, so cheap as to be effectively free, yet so useful for other tasks that they are almost never thrown away. You pick one up and roll it between your gloved fingers. You try to recall the last time you used one for its intended purpose. It was several weeks ago to temporarily bind a small set of fragile 19th century letters that could not be put through a scanner. But when was the last time you used a paperclip? For something? It was probably yesterday. You mentally run through its new unofficial job description. The paperclip is no longer a specialist. It is the ultimate generalist. It is the tool you reach for to eject the SIM card tray from your phone. It's the emergency screwdriver for tightening the tiny hinge on a pair of eyeglasses. It's the makeshift lock pick for a stubborn filing cabinet, keyhole, or a flimsy diary lock. It is the perfect, slender probe for clearing dust from a keyboard or lint from a smartphone's charging port. Its primary function, you muse, has devolved. From binding to miscellaneous poking, it has become the Swiss Army knife of the office drawer, albeit one with only a single, versatile blade. This strange state of affairs places the humble clip at the center of a quiet but persistent academic debate around a concept called dematerialization. You remember reading papers on the topic. The theory, born in the early days of computing, was that technology would free us from our reliance on physical things. We would use less paper, own fewer objects, and live in a cleaner, more ethereal world of information. The reality, as you know, is far more complex. While use of office paper has indeed declined, our consumption of other physical goods has soared. The paperclip is a perfect paradoxical symbol of this messy transition. Its original purpose is dematerializing day by day, but the object itself stubbornly refuses to disappear. Does its persistence prove that dematerialization is a flawed theory, or does it demonstrate the incredible adaptability of a well-designed object capable of finding new ecological niches to survive in as its old environment vanishes? You hold the single clip up to the warm light of your desk lamp. You feel a momentary, gentle wave of melancholy for it. It is a creature perfected for a world that is fading away. It's like a magnificent steam locomotive in an age of electric trains. All its trillions of siblings, sleeping in desk drawers and dusty bowls across the world, are an army waiting for orders that will never come, trained for a battle that is now being fought on a different front. They are kings in exile, rulers of a shrinking domain. You can't help but find it a little sad. They are a retired generation, still in their simple, functional uniforms, with nowhere to go and nothing to do. But the feeling passes as you look, again at its simple, elegant form. It is not a tragic figure. It is a survivor. It has done what all successful life forms do. It has adapted. It may no longer be the mighty binder of global commerce, the indispensable tool of law and literature, but it is still here. It is still useful. It has accepted its demotion from indispensable icon to miscellaneous helper with a quiet, metallic grace. Its story is a soft reminder that even in our sleek, wireless, cloud-based world, we are still physical beings who need simple physical tools. We still have tiny buttons to push and small screws to tighten. And for that, we still have the paperclip, our constant, silent servant, waiting patiently in the drawer for the next small, unexpected problem that only it can solve. Its grandest days may be over, but its story of quiet usefulness continues. You placed a single reformed paperclip in the center of your desk, directly in the pool of warm light from your lamp. In the quiet of the archive, it looks less like an office supply and more like a tiny, minimalist sculpture. Its journey is complete, and now, in the stillness of the night, you can appreciate it not for what it does or what it has meant, but simply for what it is, a perfect object. You reflect on its incredible resilience. This exact double-loop design has been with us for well over a century. Think of all that has come and gone in that time. The empires that have crumbled, the technologies that have risen and fallen, the entire world remade by wars and revolutions. The very typewriters that churned out the documents it once bound are now prized antiques. The massive oak filing cabinets that held its work are now trendy sideboards. And yet the gem clip remains unchanged, unupdated, and unrebooted. It is a silent, enduring testament to the power of getting something right the first time. You lean closer, examining its familiar curves. You contemplate the simple, beautiful physics that make it work, a tiny engine of potential energy that we take for granted. When you slide a few sheets of paper into its embrace, you are momentarily bending and twisting the wire from its natural resting state. The wire, made of spring steel, possesses a material memory. It wants to return to its original shape. That desire creates a gentle, consistent clamping force. It's a perfect harmony of torsion, the twisting of the wire at the U bends, and simple bending stress along its arms. It holds the paper securely, but not so tightly that it damages it. It is a tiny, elegant physics engine that requires no fuel, has no moving parts, and lasts for decades. It is a masterpiece of material science, disguised as a throwaway office supply. This elegant perfection has made the paperclip a key exhibit in the long-running philosophical debate among designers. What makes a design timeless? What are the ingredients of perfection? You think of the great design manifestos you have read. The German industrial designer Dieter Rams famously declared that good design is as little design as possible, less but better. The paperclip is the embodiment of this principle. There is not a single superfluous curve or bend. Every part of it is essential to its function. There is nothing you could add to improve it, and nothing you could take away without breaking it. Others argue that timelessness comes from a design's honesty. The paperclip does not hide its nature. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is, a cleverly bent piece of wire. You can see exactly how it works just by looking at it. And still others would argue that the key is adaptability, and as you have seen tonight, its ability to find new purpose is legendary. The gem clip is the star pupil in every one of these schools of thought. It is the quiet, unimpeachable evidence that the most enduring solutions are often the simplest. You let your mind drift back over the entire journey you have traced tonight. From the comfort of your chair, you see the fragile silk ribbons and the brittle wax seals of a distant past. You see the terrifying, spring-loaded mechanical monsters from the age of steam. You feel the spark of genius in Samuel Fay's ticket fastener the moment the core principle was finally understood. You sense the presence of the anonymous ghost in a British factory, perfecting the final iconic form. You see the proud, mistaken face of Johann Valor, a national hero by popular acclaim. You see the small steel loops gleaming on the lapels of defiant students in occupied Oslo. You feel the satisfying click of the unbent clip rebooting a frozen computer. You see the absurd, googly eyes of Clippy and the monumental steel sculpture rising from a green lawn. All of these stories, all of this history, is held within the form of the single, simple object resting on your desk. As an archivist, you feel your work for the night is done. You have followed the long and winding road of this small metal object and found that it is anything but boring. It is a quiet hero of modern life. It brought order to the paper-fueled chaos of the industrial age. It became an unlikely vessel for the human spirit in a time of crisis, and it cleverly adapted to survive in the digital world that was meant to replace it. It is a testament to the power of quiet persistence, anonymous genius, and the profound, enduring beauty of simple, functional design. You pick it up one last time, feeling the imagined weight of all that history in your palm. It is, after all, just a bent piece of wire. And yet it is so much more. And now the story is over. The journey is complete. The little paperclip, with all its history and all its adventures, can finally rest. You can let the images of it fade away now. The patents, the factories, the symbols, the sculptures, just let them all drift away like old papers caught on a gentle evening breeze. They can all be filed away for the night, neatly and quietly, in the great silent archive of your sleepy mind. Your focus now turns inward to the quiet comfort of your own space. Feel the gentle weight of your blanket, a soft, reassuring pressure that tells you are safe and secure. Listen to the steady, rhythmic hum of the fan, a constant, soothing sound that washes over the room, smoothing out all the sharp edges of the day. It's a sound you can lean back into, a sound that asks nothing of you. Your only task now is to breathe. A slow, easy breath in, and a long, soft breath out. There is nothing to do, nothing to solve. The story of the paperclip has shown us the beauty of simplicity, and now you can embrace that simplicity in your own mind. A mind becoming as uncluttered and as peaceful as that perfect, simple loop of wire. You can feel your own thoughts slowing down, the busy pace of the day finally giving way to a gentle, drifting sensation. You are floating now in a calm, quiet, and comfortable space. A space that is all your own. You are an essential part of our nappy family, and your cozy spot here is always waiting for you. There is no effort required now. Just allow the gentle current of sleep to carry you away. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are deeply, deeply relaxed. Just letting go, drifting deeper and deeper into a peaceful, restorative sleep. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.